Hello students, today we are going to study the fourth chapter of your book Moments, that is in the Kingdom of Fools, written by A.K. Ramanujan. So, and this, I must tell you that this story is basically a Kannada folk tale. Now, what is a Kannada? Language. It is a, you all know that Kannada is a regional language which is mainly spoken in the state of Karnataka. And what is a folk tale? Folk tale is a story which is passed on from one generation to another. Folk means about the past. Then, and it is, this story is taken from the book named Folk Tales from India, which is written by A.K. Ramanujan. So before beginning this chapter, let us discuss the title of the story, Kingdom of Fools. What do you mean by the title, The Kingdom of Fools? It means the state where the people are stupid. They are not so wise, they are not at all intelligent. And in this story, the king, his ministers, and his advisors all are fools. That means they are not at all wise, nor they are intelligent. And in this kind, when this kind of people rule the kingdom or the state, then you all know what happens. So we are going to read in the story what happens in this kingdom, which is ruled by the foolish king and his ministers. So now we'll begin with the story. So first let's see to the characters in the story. The main characters in the story are, first is the king, who is the foolish ruler and who has executed himself. Next is the minister, the foolish advisor to the king, who agrees with everything that the king proposes. Third character is the guru. He is a very resourceful person with magical powers and who becomes a king through his wisdom or through his intelligence. And the fourth character is the disciple, who is a greedy and short-sighted person and who remembers his guru in the time of need. He remembers his advice only when he was in trouble. So these are the characters. Now we'll see what is there in this chapter. In this chapter, the Kingdom of Fools, as I told you, that it is a story written by A.K. Ramanujan, and the story highlights the fact that in a kingdom of fools, people's lives can be in danger, as the king and his ministers were brainless and they did not do things in a normal manner. And it is a place where everything is in reverse and justice is not given. And then a guru and his disciple, one day they visit this place and get involved in some matters. But finally, with guru's wisdom, king and his ministers get executed by their own orders, and normalcy is restored in the city after their death. And the people afterwards, they chose guru as the king and his disciple as the minister. So this is the story in short, or you can say to the sketch of the chapter or the summary of the chapter, which highlights what is there in this chapter, what we are going to read in the story. So now let's begin with the story. The first line says, in the kingdom of fools, both the king and the ministers were idiots. Now who are idiots? The idiots are the people who are not at all intelligent, who are fools. So in this line, the narrator introduces that in the kingdom of fools, the king and his ministers, they both were unintelligent, or they were stupid, you can say that. Then further, the next line says they didn't want to run things like other kings. So they decided to change night into day and day into night. So how stupid it is. So what happened? The king and his ministers, they did not want to run their kingdom like other kings did. They wanted to do something different. So what they did? They decided to do a slight change, or they wanted to do something different. So they started treating night as day and day as night. Now you can think that what will happen if the day becomes night and night becomes the day. So then afterwards they ordered that the work which was done at night would be done during the daytime, and the work which was done during the daytime will be done during the night time. Then further they say, they ordered that everyone should be awake at night till their fields and run their business only after dark and go to bed as soon as the sun came up. Anyone who disobeyed would be punished with death. So here telling is to cultivate the land for farming. So in these lines what is said, that they passed the order, the king and his ministers, they passed an order that everyone in the kingdom would work at night. Nobody would sleep at night. The farmers would do farming at night, and ones who ran business would do business at night. And as soon as the sun rose, everyone would go to sleep. So these were the orders by the king. And further it was said that if someone would disobey the order, then he or she would be punished with death. Then further the next line says, the people did as they were told for fear of death. The king and the ministers were delighted at the success of their project. So this happens in the kingdom of fools. Now here what happened? The people, because they were scared, they obeyed the king's orders as he told them to do. Otherwise they had the fear to be sentenced with death penalty. So they obeyed the order, although it was very strange. And the king and his ministers, both the fools, were very happy that all the people in the kingdom were following their order and their plan was successful. Then further it is written that one day a guru and his disciple arrived in the city. Guru is the saint and disciple is the student. Then further it says, it was a beautiful city. It was broad daylight, but there was no one about. Everyone was asleep, not a mouse stirring. Even the cattle had been taught to sleep by day. So just see how foolish it was. So what is said in these lines, that one day what happened, a saint and his disciple, they arrived in the kingdom of fools, and he saw that it was a beautiful city and it was a bright sunny day, but he could not find anyone moving or anyone around in the city, and they were very surprised. And then everyone was asleep. It was very strange, and the writer says that not even a mouse was stirring. And stirring here means to move around, means to roam here and there. And then they could not find a single mouse also moving around, which means that it was so quiet, as everyone, even the tiniest creatures, the mice, were asleep. And the people had taught their cattle too to sleep during the day. So everyone, the human as well as animals, were sleeping because of the fear of death. Then further it is written, the two strangers were amazed by what they saw around them and wandered around town till evening, when suddenly the whole town woke up and went about its nightly business. So here the word amazed means shocked or surprised. So what happened? The two strangers who visited the kingdom of fools were not aware that this kind of order had been passed in the city. So they were very much surprised to see that everyone was sleeping during the daytime, and they kept on wandering around in the whole city. And as soon as the night drew, then everyone woke up and started doing their work. And businessmen also were doing their business, and farmers were tilling their field. So this was very strange, which the guru and his disciple found in this. Then further the next paragraph says, the two men were hungry. Now that the shops were open, they went to buy some groceries. To their astonishment means surprise, they found that everything cost the same, a single dudu. What is dudu? Dudu is a money in Kannada language. Whether they bought a measure of rice or a bunch of bananas, it cost a dudu. So what do you understand by these lines? So in these lines it is said that the Guru and his disciples were very hungry, because the whole day they had come from a very far off place and they were hungry. The whole day they were just moving around to find something, but they were not able to see any person outside or anybody roaming in the village. So both the Guru and the disciple, since the whole day they had not eaten anything, so they were feeling very hungry. And when the shops opened at night, they went to buy groceries, and they were surprised to see that whatever they bought from the shop costed only 1 dudu. So that means the price of every item was same. Everything that they purchased, every grocery costed the same price, that is 1 dudu. And the things which were very cheap out there, so all the things which they found at a very high rate in the other towns and cities, they were very cheap in this kingdom of fools. Whether you buy a big bunch of bananas or you buy a big bag of rice, it costed only 1 dudu. So everything was at the same price in the kingdom of fools. So this was the first and foremost thing that was very foolish. Then further it is said the Guru and his disciple were delighted. Delighted means very happy. They had never heard of anything like this. They could buy all the food they wanted for a rupee, single rupee only. So 1 dudu is 1 rupee. So here what is said, the Guru and his disciple, they were very happy. Why? Because the food in this kingdom was very cheap and they could buy a lot of food just for a rupee. Then further it is said, when they had cooked and eaten, the Guru realized that this was a kingdom of fools and it wouldn't be a good idea for them to stay there. So what is said, that when the Guru and his disciple, they cooked and ate their food, the Guru realized that this kingdom where they have arrived is a kingdom of fools, and they decided not to stay there any longer because it was unsafe for them, because anything could happen in this kingdom of fools which could put them in danger. So further then it is said, this is no place for us, let's go, he said to his disciple. So Guru, he just told his disciple that this place was not the right place for them and asked him to leave at once. Then further the next line says, but the disciple didn't want to leave the place. Everything was cheap here. All he wanted was good, cheap food. So what happened? The disciple of the Guru was a foodie. He loved to eat, and that is why he did not want to leave this place, because the food was very cheap, and cheap in that kingdom, cheap at that place, and it was very good also. So therefore he did not want to leave the place. He did not want to leave that kingdom of fools. Then further it is written, the Guru said, they are all fools and this won't last very long, and you can't tell what they'll do to you next. So what happened now? Guru is a wise man. He is very intelligent. He could see what is going to happen in future. So he predicted that. So he said, so the Guru, he tried to make his disciple understand and told him that everyone out there was a fool in the kingdom, and it was very dangerous to live among such fools. And he said that the kingdom would not last for a long time and they could harm them too. So then we'll see what happens, whether the disciple agrees to his Guru or not. So further it is said, but the disciple wouldn't listen to the Guru's wisdom. He wanted to stay. So the disciple was a foolish man. Just out of greed only, he wanted to stay back in that kingdom of fools. So he did not listen. He did not listen to his Guru's words of wisdom. The disciple, he is not foresighted like his Guru and could not understand what his Guru was trying to say, and therefore he wanted to live there only and enjoy the cheap food. So we can say that he was a greedy man. He was a foodie. So out of greed only he wanted to stay back over there. Then further the next line says, the Guru finally gave up and said, do what you want, I am going, and left. And he left. So finally the Guru left alone, leaving the disciple behind. Then further it is said, the disciple stayed on, ate his fill every day, bananas and ghee and rice and wheat, and grew fat like a street side sacred bull. So here it is again a humor which is being used by the author or the writer. So in these lines it is said that the disciple, he stayed back in the kingdom of fools, and while his guru left the place, and every day what he did, he ate a lot of food, due to which he became as fat as a huge bull. So here a simile has been used to tell that how fat that disciple became because of eating too much of food out of greed. And further it says, one bright day, a thief broke into a rich merchant's house. He had made a hole in the wall and sneaked in. Sneak means to move in secretly. And as he was carrying out his loot, the wall of the old house collapsed. Collapse means fell down on his head and killed him on the spot. So now what happened? Now finally the incident occurred. What was the incident? That one day a thief entered a merchant's house. Who is a merchant? Is a businessman. So what happened? He made a hole in the wall to gain access. That means to get inside the house. And when he was about to move out of the house, after looting all the things, what happened? The hole was small, and when he tried to get out of that place, the wall broke and fell down on his head, and he died there on the spot at that moment only. Then further it is said that his brother ran to the king and complained, "Your Highness, when my brother was pursuing his ancient trade." Now here what do you mean by pursuing his ancient trade? Pursuing means follow, and ancient trade refers to the theft. That means the whole family was engaged in the business of looting or of stealing. You can say business of stealing. So he is calling his business of stealing as an ancient trade. A wall fell on him and killed him. This merchant is to blame. He should have built a good strong wall. You must punish the wrongdoer and compensate the family for this justice. So see, you can see that how foolish the people were there in that kingdom, and we'll see that on top of it the king was also a foolish man, a stupid person. So what happened? One day what happened? The thief's younger brother went to the king and complained that his brother was following his ancient trade. Although the ancient trade is robbing, the ancient trade of that man, younger brother was robbing the people or committing a burglary. So that is actually a crime. So he said that while his brother was working, or he was involved in that ancient trade, he was busy with this trade, the wall fell on his head and he died. The thief's brother was taking advantage of the king's foolishness now, and he said that the merchant whose wall has fallen down on his brother was the culprit and he should be punished. He said that he should have made a strong wall. Then he requested the king to punish the merchant and get the compensation for his family. So you can see that how foolish it is. Then further, the next line says, the king said, "Justice will be done. Don't worry." And at once summoned the owner of the house. So we can see that the king also here is very foolish. So here summon means to call upon someone. So what do you mean by these lines? What happened now? The king was so foolish. He was a foolish man, as we had seen earlier, or as I told you in the summary only. The king also was the foolish. So he was so foolish that he did not consider the fact that the dead man was committing theft at the time of his death, which was a crime, and he only thought that the man died because the wall fell on him, and the owner of the house whose wall fell on him had to be punished. So he called the merchant. He asked the merchant to be summoned before him. Now we'll see what happens further. When the merchant arrived, the king questioned him, "What's your name?" "Such and such, your highness." "Were you at home when the dead man burgled your house?" "Yes, my lord. He broke in and the wall was weak. It fell on him." The accused pleads guilty. Your wall killed this man's brother. You have murdered a man. We have to punish you." So, again, it is a very humorous thing and a foolish thing also. You can see that as soon as the merchant appeared before the king asked his name, and then the king asked him whether he was at home when the dead man, the thief, was burgling his house. The merchant replied that he was at home only, and the thief made a hole in the wall and entered his house, and when he was trying to go out, the wall fell down on him because of its weak, because the wall was very weak. Then the king told the merchant that he was guilty. He did wrong. Due to his weak wall, the thief died, and now he would be punished as he had murdered a man. So he accused that merchant as a murderer. He accused him to be a murderer, that he has murdered the poor man who was a burglar, who was pursuing his ancient trade. Now let's see further what happens. Lord said, the helpless merchant, "I didn't put up the wall. It's really the fault of the man who built the wall. He didn't build it right. You should punish him." "Who is that, my lord?" "This wall was built in my father's time. I know the man. He is an old man now. He lives nearby." So now that merchant also was very clever. Now he put all the blame on the mason who built the wall. So now we'll see what happened. The merchant, he pleaded in front of the king and requested that, "My lord, it was not my fault, and the wall was weak because the person who made the wall did not construct it properly. Hence you should punish him." And further he added that the wall was made during his father's time, and the person who built it was very old, and he knew him as he lived nearby. Then now the king sent out messengers to bring in the bricklayer who had built the wall. They brought him tied hand and foot. So what happened? Bricklayer is what? Is a person who lays the brick and builds a wall. So in these lines they said, so the king, what happened? On hearing the merchant's words, he sent his soldier to call the bricklayer or the mason who built the wall. And they tied his hand and feet and brought him in the king's palace, and he was presented before the king. Then further it is said, you there, did you build this man's wall in his father's time?" "Yes, my lord, I did." So then the king asked him that did he build the wall, and he replied that yes, he did. Then further the next line says, "What kind of a wall is this that you built? It has fallen on a poor man and killed him. You've murdered him. We have to punish you by death." So now the king said that the man had built a weak wall. He blamed him that because he built a weak wall, the wall fell on the poor thief's head and killed him. And so now he would be punished for this. He considered as a murder, as he considered him that he has murdered that poor man, that burglar, that thief. Further it is said that before the king could order the execution, the poor bricklayer pleaded. Pleaded means now he requested, "Please listen to me before you give your orders. It's true, I built this wall and it was no good. But that was because my mind was not on it. I remember very well a dancing girl who was going up and down that street all day with her anklets jingling, and I couldn't keep my eyes or my mind on the wall I was building. You must get that dancing girl. I know where she lives." So now just see, now he's putting the blame on the other because he wanted to save himself. So what happened now? Everyone is passing on the blame to another person, as I told you. And when the king was about to pass an order to execute the bricklayer or that mason, he requested the king to listen to him. He agreed that he did not make the wall properly, and it was because of a girl. Now he stated the reason that just because of a girl who was roaming around in the street and her anklets, that is pajeb, were making a jingling sound. And due to her anklets' jingle sound, he was not able to concentrate on his work. And so he built a weak wall. And it was not his mistake. He said that it was the fault of the girl. And he added that he knew where that dancing girl lived, and she should be punished instead of him. Now we'll see what happened. You are right, the case deepens. We must look into it. It is not easy to judge such complicated cases. Let's get that dancer, wherever she is. So now the king was satisfied with the bricklayer's explanation, and he was convinced with him. He tells that this case is very complicated and will not be able to solve it so easily. So he ordered his messenger to get the dancer girl. Now let's see what happens. The dancing girl, now an old woman, came trembling to the court. Did you walk up and down that street many years ago while this poor man was building a wall? Did you see him? Yes, my lord, I remember it very well. So you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling. You were young and you distracted him. So he built a bad wall. It has fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. You have killed an innocent man, and you'll have to be punished. So now how foolish it is. So we'll see what happened. The dancing girl, when she was summoned, she came to the court in front of the king. Now as she had grown old, so she was trembling, and she entered the court trembling only. The king then asked her that many years ago was she dancing and roaming around in the lane while the bricklayer was constructing the wall. So her movement distracted him. She confirmed him, and he told her that she was roaming around with her anklets jingling, which distracted the bricklayer, and due to this he could not do his work properly, and he built a bad wall which fell on the thief, and he was killed. So it was because of her that the thief died, and now she would be punished with death. So further, now see what happens. She thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait, I know now why I was walking up and down the street. I had given some gold to the blacksmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. Scoundrel is a dishonest person. He made so many excuses, said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times." So here, who is a goldsmith now? Goldsmith is a person who makes ornaments out of gold. सुनार जिसको आप हिंदी में बोलते हैं. So in these lines what is said, the dancing girl, now she thought, and then she got an idea. What she did, she transferred the blame into another person. She said that she was roaming around in this lane again and again because she had to visit the goldsmith's shop. She had given some gold to him to make jewelry out of it, and he was a dishonest person according to that dancer girl, and he was making excuses for not making her ornament in time, and he kept on asking her to come after some time. Due to this, she had to go to his house at least a dozen times. So the dancing girl said that it was the fault of the goldsmith. So it's just finally the blame has come to the goldsmith. Now we'll read further what happens. Further it says, "That was when this bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It's the damn goldsmith's fault." So now the blame was put over on goldsmith. So what he said further, Now further, the dancing girl says that when the bricklayer saw her and got distracted, it was the fault of the goldsmith, because of whom she was roaming in the lane again and again, because he only made her come to his shop again and again. So now further, poor thing, she is absolutely right, thought the king, weighing the evidence. We've got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith, wherever he is hiding at once. So what happened now? Now the king says that the poor dancing girl was totally right, and he thought a lot and finally said that now they knew who the real culprit was, and he ordered to bring the goldsmith. Then further, the king bailiffs searched for the goldsmith. Bailiffs are the law officer who makes sure that the decisions of the court are obeyed. So the king's bailiffs, they searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in a corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. So now we'll see what story now this goldsmith has to tell. So the bailiff in the king's court, when they reached to the goldsmith's shop, and the goldsmith was hiding in the one corner, and then these bailiffs, these law officers, they brought and presented him in front of the king. The goldsmith, why he was hiding inside the shop, in the one corner of the shop, because he feared being arrested. So finally he was arrested and he was brought to the court. And when he was brought in front of the king, he told his side of story in order to save himself. Now we'll see what story he tells. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's order, and they had a wedding coming, and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. So now another story. What he said that the dancing girl was right. He made many excuses and made her visit his shop again and again. And what was the reason behind it? So he's saying that it was not his fault. He had an order from the rich merchant, and they had a wedding at their place and were in a hurry to get their order, and that is why the dancing girl's work was getting delayed. So another story. So now let's see what happened. Who is the rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor man's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him? So now the king asked the goldsmith to tell the name of that rich merchant because of whom the dancer girl's jewelry was delayed. So now further, let's see what happens. The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now justice has come full circle, thought the king. Back to the merchant. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying. It wasn't me but my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead. I am innocent. So now what happened now? Goldsmith said that the merchant was the same merchant whose house wall had fallen down, and the justice has come to full circle, means the story ended at the same person from whom it had started. The thief, he died under the wall of the same merchant whose jewelry this goldsmith was making. And once again the merchant was called. He was asked to summon before the king. Now he was crying, and he knew that the king was foolish and he would give him death sentence. He said that it was not he who had ordered the jewelry, but it was his father. And now his father was dead, and it was none of his fault. Then why he should be punished? Then further it is said, but the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. It's true, your father is the true murderer. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from the criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime and you must die. So, again, a very strange. Now, here in these lines, the word inherited means the things that you get from your forefathers. So, in these lines, it is said that the king now consulted his ministers and gave the decision that the merchant's father was the murderer and the thief died because of him. And as the merchant's father was not alive, and so someone had to be punished for the crime. So he said that the merchant's son, who had inherited everything from his father, that is his wealth as well as his sins. Sins are the pap. So whatever sins he did, so the son had to bear that. So he would have to take the punishment for his wrongdoing as well, the wrongdoing of his father. So he added that when he had seen the merchant for the very first time, at that moment only he had a feeling that he was the culprit. And so the king announced that now the merchant would have to die. So this is all for today. Now we'll read in the next class what happens in the end, how the Guru's words came to be right or correct. So we'll read what happened, who was punished in the story, and how the Guru became the king of this kingdom of fools. So now thank you and goodbye for today.